slippery. And it's also that time again to talk about the Canon R5. And now I've had it for a while now, and so I wanted to go through pros, the cons, and who I think this camera is for, and would I recommend it to anybody looking to buy a camera in 2021. And spoiler alert, this is my favorite camera that I've ever owned. So as with pretty much every review that I do, this isn't going to be a deep dive or scientific review looking at all the specs. This is just a short, sweet, practical guide for how I've used this camera, how I've liked this camera, and who I think this camera is for. And so with that said, let's jump right into it, starting with the cons. And I think as no surprise, the first con is the overheating. Now I want to talk about this a little bit later on, but without a doubt, overheating, it does exist, it does happen, and can significantly impact and cripple how you shoot, depending on how you shoot with this camera. When I first got the R5 and it started to overheat, I was freaking out. I was super worried, have I just wasted all this money on this camera? Because it was a real issue, and it did happen when shooting 4K 60. Con number two, again, no surprise, is that wobble. When shooting on a wide lens with the image stabilization that Canon offers, you get that wobble in the corners, and it just does not look good. And so obviously there's some ways around this of how you shoot, turning off image stabilization, or just not shooting as wide. But again, it's a con, it's annoying, and it doesn't look good when you see it. Con number three are the huge files that come along with shooting video on the R5. Because it offers 10-bit 422 and shooting in 8K, 4K 120, the files are expectedly big, but like way bigger than a lot of the other cameras that offer similar shooting options. And so with huge file sizes comes into the fourth con of the price. And it's not just, that this camera is pretty dang expensive. It's that everything else that goes with it also adds onto the money. So you're not just paying for this camera, you're also paying for a CF Express card, which can run you up to $500, or the extra memory, the storage, or it could be that your computer or laptop can't even handle editing the files that the R5 puts out, because they're pretty taxing on your computer while you're editing. And so if you are buying the R5, just know that you're not going to just buy the body. You're going to be paying for all that extra stuff, and that really does add up. So all in all, those are the cons that I've run into. Those are the things that I've had to work around. I want to get into the pros, because I think there are a lot of pros when it comes to this camera. With the pros, we got to start with the photography. As a photo camera, this might be one of the best, if not the best cameras on the market right now for photography. With 45 megapixels, I love it. I can crop in without losing a ton of resolution. The image looks great. By far, out of all the cameras that I've had, and I've shot on the 5D Mark III, the 1DX Mark II, I've had a lot of cameras that are great photography cameras. This blows them out of the water. I love this camera. And one of those features that's for both photo and video is the autofocus. The autofocus is incredible on the R5. And it's not just the face tracking like I'm doing right now. It's the eye autofocus, both for people and for animals. So if I'm taking video or photo of my dogs or of birds, wildlife, it locks on, and it locks on quick and is super accurate. So for both photo and video, I know that I can trust this camera when it comes to the autofocus abilities. Another pro that I love, that I really wished was on past Canon models, was the in-body image stabilization. I love it. I love having this on this camera. I know I had mentioned before that image wobble that you get in the corners, but for the most part, that's just shooting on a really wide lens, and there's workarounds, and I really haven't had too much of an issue, except maybe when it comes to vlogging. But overall, the in-body image stabilization is so smooth and really just takes out all those little wobbles and jitters. And if you decide to add on the digital stabilization on top of it, you're locked in. It's like having a gimbal in your hands. One of the other upgrades from shooting on the Canon R was the body size. This body is just a little bit bigger, which I really like, feels good in my hands, but also isn't too small like other mirrorless cameras where they just kind of feel like toys. This one is still a rugged, sturdy model that fits right in my hand without being too overbearing like my 1DX Mark II. That was literally giving me a huge workout when I was vlogging with it. It was a little beefy. Last but not least, something that this camera gets ragged on a lot for is the image quality for video, but honestly, I love the image quality for video. It shoots at 10-bit, 422 across the board when it comes to 120 frames per second, all the way to just shooting 24 frames per second. Even though I do not use it, 8K is absolutely insane. Having that ability to use it in special niche situations if I want to crop in is also pretty cool. But just having the ability to shoot 4K 60, 4K 120, I love it. And for the work that I do, it's perfect. Now, when it comes to the overheating, there's actually been a complete change with it. Once I did the first firmware update, I honestly haven't had a single issue with overheating. Like, the camera hasn't overheated once. And that includes shooting in 4K 60, 4K 120, doesn't matter. But I will say that this kind of lends to the way that I shoot. I don't shoot long form 4K 60 or 120. I'm shooting it like maybe 15 seconds tops and then turning the camera off. And that's just my style of how I shoot, both in terms of YouTube and in terms of when I'm working with different brands. They're just short, quick takes, and yeah, I haven't had a single overheating issue since then. So with that being said, that makes the video side of things so much better, so much easier to deal with. I will say, if you're wanting to do long form 4K 60, I mean, I don't know why you would do that anyways, but yes, the camera will overheat. But like I said, with the way that I'm shooting, the style that I'm shooting, just short, quick takes, this has been great. And that kind of brings us to the last question of, who is this camera for? I highly recommend it. I love this camera, so why did I get it, and who would I recommend this camera for? So I think this camera is perfect for anybody who's doing kind of a one-man show, both photo and video, for online content creators that have work on Instagram, on YouTube, and even those that are doing smaller gigs with video. So this is definitely not a cinema camera. If you're looking for something that's more video specific, but still within a similar price point, maybe the Sony a7S III is your jam. But when it comes to being able to do both photo and video, this is the camera for you. So if your needs are both photography and video and you're looking to get everything in one camera, that's where I think the R5 shines. It's able to take great video and incredible photos, and I don't need to worry about buying multiple cameras, and the gigs that I do don't require higher cinema cameras as well. And so this is my jack of all trades camera, and why it's been my favorite camera that I've ever had. But I want to know from you. Let me know your thoughts. Is this a camera that you would buy? Why or why not? Do you already have it, and do you love it, or do you hate it? Are there things that you're frustrated with? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. As always, make sure to like and subscribe. It really does make a difference. And I'll see you on the next video. Dang it.